So good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to have you here virtually in this webinar to discuss a topic that I think is relevant for many of you when we think about replication, which is this idea of franchising and social franchising. And to help us elaborate about that topic today, we have a webinar that is focusing on a specific case study with a great entrepreneur, Hugo Aguiar, who is the founder of Speak. And Speak is one of the most interesting impact ventures in Portugal, currently replicating internationally in different cities across Europe. So it's great to draw from your experience. So welcome, Hugo. And just a note for everyone. So we will start with a brief overview of Speak and a bit of the evolution of Speak so that you understand the model. And then we will go more deeply into the topic of social franchising and how it's being operationalized. And we'll open up for questions from all of you towards the end so that you can pick Hugo's brain on what has worked or not in his experience. But first of all, Hugo, welcome to this webinar and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. So, hello everyone. Very happy to be here. Thank you for considering Speak for this webinar. It is our pleasure to be here. Just since I don't know if everyone here knows Speak, probably not, I'll just quickly explain what Speak is, and then along the conversation we'll probably go more in details. Basically, we work with the social inclusion of migrants and refugees, and what we do is we try to connect migrants, refugees and locals living in the same city through language and culture exchange experiences, plus community organized events. So long story short, this is it.
Very good. I know that you started Speak almost 6 years ago. And you won many national awards, social innovation awards, social entrepreneurship awards. But this year you were nominated as an Ashoka Fellow. That's a big honor. There's only 5 Ashoka Fellows in Portugal. There were 2 and now 3 more, and you are one of them. And Ashoka has a very rigorous process of identifying what's a global social innovation, what are some of the requirements. So why do you believe they chose Speak and they chose you, but also the social innovation around Speak? What's unique about Speak?
Yeah, so basically, and maybe it's recommended reading for everyone to understand a little bit how Ashoka works, but basically Ashoka looks for 5 dimensions. Some are related to the project and others are related to the social entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. And the ones about the project are tackled basically 2 angles. One is ability or potential for a systemic change. And the second one is about innovation, the new idea. I have a slide to explain a little bit on how Ashoka looks at Speak. And basically here
Can everyone see the slide? Just raise your hand if you do. Veronica, can you see the slide? Okay, very good.
Basically, there are 3 things that Ashoka see in Speak that help along the process and are related to the methodology of Speak. So one is that Speak uses the motivation or the need that people have to learn a language as a mean for a different end. So we have a methodology that basically uses this need or motivation that people have to learn a language to put people together in offline environments where everyone stands as equals. And the methodology, the way they interact with each other along the process, increases the probability of people building meaningful relationships and friendships. So using this need or motivation about the language for a different hand is something that Ashoka considered to be very new, because no one is going or signing up for Speak as like an integration program, but but because the project is cool, is informal, they want to meet other people, learn languages, and so they are more available for the magic that we want to happen along the process. The second thing is that the experience is community-based. This means that the team is a bit invisible along the process. So basically everything happens through the users. So they are the ones signing up to learn or help others learning. The events are community organized. So the community owns the project, and everything happens, and all the value of the program depends on the community.
The activity of the community.
Exactly. And the third one, and these are basically key, they looked for different ones, but these are key 3 elements that they believe that make Speak a little bit more unique and effective, efficient. The third one is that participants are the change makers. So along the time, they actually build meaningful relationships, they create the support network, and they are the ones helping the other person when the other person needs it the most, for like solving a simple problem like where can I buy cheap and quality food, or can you help me building a CV, or how can I get access to the national health system. So these are the 3. Then of course Ashoka also looks for the impact model, but we can get in details on this one later.
So normally people say, sometimes people have a paid-forward model. We have an included-forward model, so people that get included, socially included through the model can help others, their peers, to also get included as well. For me, when I learned about your model, the most powerful insight I had about it was this idea, instead of looking at refugees or immigrants as disadvantaged, poor people that we need to help, by creating this peer-based network, everyone is an equal, everyone can help and be helped. And so this really empowers and enables all members of the community, both the locals, the citizens, and the immigrants and refugees. So I think that is a lot of the power of the model. And I would say, like many models in Portugal, we did a few years ago with Yes, we did this mapping of social innovation in the country, and in 2012, and yours was one of the models that we identified, and many had been born out of social sector organizations, in your case, a youth association in Leiria, one of the mid-sized cities in Portugal, but you have recently spun off and created a social enterprise, and also got one of the first impact investing rounds in the country. What makes you a social enterprise? What kind of model did you create to really be this kind of unicorn that doesn't exist legally, and you created one, social enterprise?
Yeah, so the first thing, which is very tough, is that legal-wise, there's no social enterprise in Portugal. So basically, what we do, or what we did, was to create a company with the guidelines that we believe that make a social enterprise. These guidelines are related, for example, to the lock around the social mission. So we try to make sure that the social mission is not compromised, and that we will do always something related to the social inclusion of migrants and refugees.
That's in the statutes, that is in writing, okay.
Yeah. Then the second one is about how we do it. So it's the model and how we operate as an organization, and that is a lot about the social intervention model as well, and the decision-making process. The third one is about the partners we work with. So they need to be aligned with impact, and also the funders. And one way to make sure that they are aligned with the social impact is that, like, for example, an impact investor or a funder, we need to have basically a model where they expect the 2 types of returns, so social impact and the financial one. And the financial one must be way more social than the traditional ladder of investing. So this is...
And that means getting or being willing to get less return,
Exactly.
or only wanting return when there's evidence that impact comes with that financial return.
So at the moment is more about only getting financial return until a certain limit, way more social, and also only getting the return when the social impact is not compromised and the organization has the means to continue its work.
Okay, so you have a cap on returns,
Yeah.
and you try to ensure that there's always impact generated by your model, and only in those situations there could be return for you.
And we have an extra one that doesn't apply for other social enterprises in other countries, but in our case, at the moment, we also have a rule that everyone else on the cap table with equity cannot get dividends. So only for the impact investors, there's a way to have return on investment, and is still with a limit.
And that is forever this lock of no dividends?
At the moment, yes. So we will have to go through a general meeting where everything is approved in a different way, but the founders at the moment, this is our status.
Okay. So you make the commitment of not getting any dividends until a certain stage where the level of impact is achieved, and then you are in a different direction. Yeah. Very good. It would be interesting for the audience to understand where you are specifically in terms of your development stages. Typically, and if you remember, if some of you were in the first webinar, we have this idea of the life cycle of social innovation, where social entrepreneurs go through a series of stages. The first stage, a lot about discovering their model, the social problem, and developing a social innovation. And then in the second and third stage, the second very much trying to validate that solution, the impact model, the revenue model around the solution, and then preparing for the scaling, building the team. That sometimes is called the dead valley, because it's such a difficult stage to go through that many ventures stop along the way for lack of funding, for lack of motivation. But you have been able to go through some of those stages. Do you still see yourself in that very difficult stage, or do you sense that you are now really with things very clear on a ramp-up stage? How was that experience for you, and what have you learned?
So we are not out of that stage yet, and I will explain you how we see that valley. But basically, I think along this stage we did something very well, which I guess was we validated the intervention model. We know that Speak is very efficient and effective helping people. We also tested different revenue streams. There are some that work very well and that show great potential for the long term. We also built a technology around it, so we created a process around Speak that enables scalability. But for a project like ours that was designed since day one to not rely on funders, so having the ability to be self-sustainable, we are not there yet. So that's why we consider that we are not out of that valley yet. And something that we learned is that when you want to have an impact at scale, really not compromise the mission and the vision that you have as a team, and making sure that you are self-sustainable financial-wise at the same time, it's something very, very tough to achieve that requires time, a lot of love in everything you do, in the team that you are working with, and that will require also patient capital, patient partners, and many organizations helping you to get there. Yeah.
So it's building this ecosystem of support around the venture.
Yeah, and also setting expectations clear around. And like some of the challenges like that we went through was a lot about building a team. Recruiting top talent was very difficult. We faced many challenges around legal structures, like we mentioned before that we started as a youth. Speak was kind of incubated in a youth organization, NGO, charity. We tried to create the spin-off to a social enterprise. We are along that process still because it's very complex to handle all these things. Testing in new markets, there are assumptions that were well predicted, others not so well predicted, so you need to change. And yeah, so there's loads of things that happen, and I think the probability of success along that stage directly depends on the speed and the ability of the team of understanding this was a mistake, let's try something else. And I think this is true in the context of social innovation, but it is also true, and it works exact same in any other industry.
And at that stage, I think you've done some things that were very important, and you mentioned a couple of them, but one was really systematizing the processes through which the intervention worked. So the process of identifying and maybe coaching a teacher on how to teach the peers, how to set up a group, a class, what composition should the class be to have this diversity and inclusion that you want to have, what kind of events worked. So you made an effort through your initial experience to systematize what was working and codify it. And that's something that it's important to do in all of your models at this stage. But the other thing, which is maybe not so obvious, is to try to automate some functions, maybe through technology, to allow them to be scalable. And you mentioned that you spent some time developing a platform, an online platform for the registration process. So what was done manually by your logistics staff of setting up a group, enrolling people, finding the right groups and venues, and doing the scheduling, which what took hours now is done in nanoseconds by your platform, right? And that's a great asset that allows also your model to be more efficient. Yeah. So let's speak about efficiency, because you said we now believe we have an efficient model. Can you being very clear, can you tell us what at the microeconomics of the model are? At the basic level, what do you sell? What's your intervention? How much does it cost? And what is the revenue generation?
So just for a bit of context about the technology, because you mentioned it, and some organizations consider that one of the innovations or the differentiators of Speak is a lot about technology. When I mention what Ashoka sees, sometimes Ashoka doesn't look very much for the technology part, and they are more looking for the theory of change and what happens in terms of social intervention model. But technology is key in Speak, and basically it's key. And we believe in the team that if we do not do a great job technology-wise, we will not be able to help at scale. Speak works as an online to offline model. So
online to offline,
yeah,
okay.
It's a concept that you can also search online. But basically what this means is that we handle all the operations online to give scalability, but then the experience of learning, sharing, having fun, connecting with one another happens offline, face-to-face. We created the technology in a way that it removes the stress from the user, meaning the user, and of course some things it's a bit where we want to go, and other things already happen. But the idea of technology in Speak is to make sure that you, as a participant of Speak, don't need to stress about how do I deliver session number 1, what I do on the first 20 minutes, how I wrap up, where I meet my group, who is my group, all that stuff. All this information should be given to you on the right timing, so that you don't need to stress about that. That's the idea. And also for the back office side, so our small team, most of the work needs to be automated, otherwise we wouldn't be able to scale. And this is also a bit of the business model, because it's strategy that we kind of fix the cost of our structure, and you have scalability, because the main revenue stream that we have is through a B2C channel that has a symbolic fee, and the only way to make money is having many users.
And very low cost.
Yeah. So, for example, the process of applying, allocating to a group was manual before, over Excel files and all that stuff, was very time consuming. For you to have an idea, in average, in like a learning service as like this university or other like private schools or whatever, no matter the service, in average it costs 25 hours to allocate a person to a group for learning something. And we do that in computational or computing time. So we basically try to identify all the manual process and created automated procedures, so that happens without our interaction. So even today, if you are, for example, in Lisbon, and you sign up as someone willing to help others learning Portuguese in Lisbon, you can do most of the work or getting there without our intervention. The only intervention you will have probably will be the training, and that's it.
That's what allows then the franchising of the model, which we'll speak about later.
And then, if you want, I can go now to the economics.
I think that would be interesting for people to see. We have a slide about that as well.
I have a slide. The first thing that is important also for everyone to understand is that we grow on a city by city level. Other companies do that. Companies that we know, like Uber, for example, has also the level of unit is city, and we do that as well. So we are hyper-local, and hyper-local is a buzzword again, also in the tech industry. And we are hyper-local in the sense that our intervention model is focused on a community very well defined. So we have different units. Now, that's the...
Maybe let me just clarify something. In any of your models, it's useful to think about your unit of analysis at two levels. One would be the delivery unit, which is the experience unit. What's the minimum unit in which my experience happens? For example, in the case of Uber, would be a taxi ride. The process of booking a taxi arriving, the client entering, going to destination, that's one unit of delivery. So they think about how many taxi rides did we deliver, how do we deal with the customer. In your case, it's the group of sessions, a group coming together for a certain number of weeks, 12 weeks, to learn together. So an isolated session doesn't make sense, because in an isolated session you don't build inclusion, you don't build learning. Your unit of delivery is this 12 weeks, weekly meeting for 12 weeks. So that's the delivery unit, which may be a different one for each of your cases. And then there is the scaling unit. And the scaling unit is the minimum unit where you have critical mass to replicate your model. And in this case of actually Speak and Uber, as you were saying, the city is the unit in which you scale, because you need a critical mass. You need to go to a city with a certain critical mass for the model to work. You cannot just say, I'm going to open up in a neighborhood. So you need to think about a city. In some cases, it's a country. I'm expanding my model to a certain country. In some cases, it's a region. I'm selling my product in this, Barcelona region. But in the case of Speak, is a city. So city is for scaling, but the microeconomics is for the delivery unit, which is a course. So how does the course work on your economics?
Yeah, so language groups or courses, we have a standard. Standard means this is like what you will find in most of the cities where we operate, but our technology also allows to customize a bit the duration, length, intensity of these groups. But our standard is this one. So basically it's a 18 hours experience. This is very important because what we measure in terms of KPIs or the metric that we look after every day is application for at least 18 hours experience.
So that's a metric.
So that's
what you keep track of.
when people ask us, like for example, many companies look for like website visitors and other stuff. We know the one that matters the most for us because it is related for the value that the participant gets from the experience.
The output that you track is a person enrolled in a course for
at least 18 hours.
For 18 hours, that's your output.
Yeah, exactly. So they meet, usually it's one session per week. This also can change, but it's one session per week of 90 minutes. And the groups have between 4 and 18 people. Okay, so this is activity number 1 that Speak has. So it's these language groups or courses. And then we have events. And events are super important for us because basically it increases the probability of people creating a bond with someone else.
Social bond, a network of friends.
Exactly, and it's an extra opportunity for you to complement your learning experience because some of the events are also related with language learning. So we have language exchanges, one-offs, and others. Where you can learn more about different cultures and that's it.
And then having those events we also discussed in the sessions between the dichotomy or difference between scaling up and scaling deep. Scaling up means geographical replication expansion of the model. Scaling deep means reinforcing your model to deliver more value to your current users. And we could look at the addition of the events as a way to scale deep because inclusion of immigrants, refugees happens not only by learning a language, but also by creating a network of friends that are not tied to your own community, your ethnic community. It goes beyond your ethnic community. Yeah. We know that for inclusion that is very important, and you try to build that into the model through these events, which are a bit more free-flowing, informal. People get together over beers, they drink together, they make friends, and then they start helping each other and bonding with each other. And that's key for the model. So that's your basic model. So the revenue per each of these units would be about...
Yes, so this is where we try to leverage the B2C revenue stream. So users that sign up to learn and to apply for these courses pay 29 euros for this 18 hours experience. Mm-hmm. Events at the moment, and it's our strategy that they are free for everyone, because basically this allows other members outside of the community to join. Also, we know that between 15 and 25% of people showing up for events will eventually convert to one of these speak language groups. So it's also
you have to have metrics.
Yeah, there's
metrics. KPIs that
we created basically events only considering the social aspect of it. But now we understand there's a business strategy also here behind that we can leverage, mm-hmm. because we know that we will have more people here, and we track that number as well. So this is our B2C, and then we monetize two additional revenue streams. So it's B2B, where basically we go to companies that have many expats, for example, and that these members or collaborators will benefit of using Speak as well. Mm-hmm. So they can buy applications in bulk. Imagine 100 applications. We give them a code. They share the code between their team members, and they can use Speak, and our system is smart enough to allocate these members to different groups so that they are not together.
They don't close each other, they already know each other. The goal is that they meet other people, so that they feel integrated beyond.
Yeah, that's our B2B. Mm-hmm. And then we have a B2G that, of course, it's a little bit limited the potential anyway, because you only have city halls or the government of the country as a target. Mm-hmm. But in some cities, we sell some services to the city hall related to Speak. And in Portugal, we actually sell on a national level. The Portuguese government is using Speak as the mainstream solution to integrate refugees in Portugal. And that's another one as an example.
Okay. That's excellent. let's speak also because of the time. Let's move to the idea of the scaling and the social franchise model.
Yeah.
So when you have this validation, you start having these business model metrics that are working. You start having evidence of impact with both stories and indicators that you track, and then you start thinking about scaling up. And scaling up usually involves a decision on what model will I choose to scale up. And typically there's maybe three basic choices. One is I will build subsidiaries, I'll replicate my model in new locations with my own team, having that cost but having that control. Or you could say I will license some form or franchise some form of my solution or my intervention for other people to deploy. Or I will just open it up for free and everyone that wants to imitate can use me as an open platform, open model. So there's three basic formats: subsidiary, franchise/license, or open free dissemination. Which ones have you tried? What have you learned? And how did you converge eventually into this social franchise model that you found now?
Yeah, so basically we tried to grow organically. So basically increase our structure and go to other cities. And our assumption was very straightforward. So basically we would recruit a project manager or project managers. They would be the ones opening one city. And when the city was achieving like a steady state, they would move to a new city. And we thought these people, individuals, would be like committed. They would know the market, so this will happen. But we had some problems with that. Basically, the problem here is this type of profile is very expensive, and we were not strongly funded in order to have like 2 or 3 project managers in one go to deploy to different cities. So speed of growth was limited to the project manager, and that there's high risk here, because if we fail on the recruitment, or if we are not able to have a good relationship with this team member and making sure that everything goes smoothly, we would lose opportunity. We would basically have a financial cost here as well. And time, right? So this didn't work very well. So we tried to grow through this model. The good news here was that we tested Speak in international cities, and we were able to validate the intervention model and the business model outside Portugal. And we learned
sometime in Berlin, right? I remember.
Yeah,
Turin.
Exactly. And we also learned that this model was not the way to go if we wanted to help at scale and like very fast. So we started to look out for other solutions, and we started trying to do some testing, and basically we changed the needle totally from growing organically towards replication. So now the end game for us, it's replication. And we have been testing this year. So beginning of 2018, we launched a new program called Take Speak to Your City that basically allows individuals to apply and take Speak to their own city. This way they are able to help transforming their own city in a more inclusive space, but at the same time, create their own full-time job as well. This also gives a new angle of capacity building for employability, and this is super cool in our model because many of our community members are migrants struggling or refugees, and we are always looking for employability like from distance, because we want that to happen throughout the support network. But now we have at least one thing that is proof. Like if these guys open, or if these individuals open Speak and take Speak to their own city and they succeed as entrepreneurs as well, that's like another thing that we can talk about. And that's where we are now. So at the moment we have 5 units operating in this model.
This franchise model of local entrepreneurs on their own taking the model to
Yeah,
their city,
exactly.
and some that you operate yourself, right?
Yes. So we are in the process of changing everything. Like in the ideal world, what we want and how we see Speak in the future is that our team only focus on three main things: is innovation on the social intervention model, innovation
Like
on the business
that we were
model,
talking about.
in the business model, and making sure that these Speak founders succeed. And we will not be on the operation side of things.
So if I am a Speak founder and I want to understand, should I adopt this model and franchise it in my, being a franchisee in my city? What do I get from Speak? So what do you expect these founders to do locally?
Yeah.
What you provide in terms of resources or processes or competencies that they need to deploy?
So I'll briefly talk about two aspects. The first one is what is this agreement about, and what do we give away in the beginning, and then I'll talk about operations, what you are supposed to do as a Speak founder.
Okay.
So we have the agreement, and basically we give you rights to use our brand, the technology. So you will use the technology and you will leverage all innovations that we do a long time.
And they are the franchisees, pitch to them.
Yeah. So you will also receive a manual with all the operations. This includes marketing, sales, how to handle the back office, everything that you need to do a long time. You also will receive some value in terms of other technologies. For example, of course, we give Speak founders a speak.social email, but we also give a Google Suite tool, so that we pay on ourselves and we give away to Speak founders. And other technologies, for example, we use Zendesk for support, and we also give you an account on Zendesk. And then, of course, in the beginning, you receive a marketing bootstrap kit that includes some, it's advertising money-wise. So, like, we give you 100 euros to use on Facebook ads. We give you flyers. We give you posters, T-shirts, all that stuff. It's like a starting kit.
The physical kit that you get in a package.
And then the most important of all these, it's the time of the centralized team, making sure that you grow as a professional. So it's training and support a long time. This is what you receive as a Speak founder. Then in terms of operations, and I'll move to a slide where I divided these. Basically, on the left side is what's handled by the centralized team, and on the right side is what is handled by your new city. And basically, on the centralized team, we do all the training of ambassadors and buddies. Ambassadors are the ones that are focused in nurturing the community. So they are the ones mobilizing the community to organize events. They also organize events themselves. Usually we have 2-3 ambassadors per city. Then buddies are the ones that sign up to help others learning in a city. Okay, and all the training for ambassadors and buddies is handled by the centralized team. So we make sure that these guys have all the same DNA and values across regions. Then the quality control of ambassadors and buddies is also handled by the centralized team, so we make sure that we don't compromise quality. And then, like product development, innovations, all that stuff is handled centralized as well. Transactions, payments, invoicing processes is also handled by the centralized team. The things that cost more time, and we learned that cost more time, we automatized and we handle that on the centralized team, so that the Speak founder can focus on what really matters. And that's basically what's on the side of the centralized team. Then, as a Speak founder, you will have to give support to your community. through online groups and Zendesk.
Using the tools that you provided.
Yeah. Then recruitment of ambassadors and buddies. You are the ones like generating the leads and nurturing the community. Local marketing, local partnerships. So Speak is a lot about partnerships, communication partners and local partners to make sure that you have spaces for the experience to happen. And managing the processes on the back office. So we have a technology, but you still need to be there and understand if the groups are being well organized, if things are happening smoothly, and then of course sales. Yeah.
And I think now it would be a good time, because we're getting to the very specifics, to open up for questions. And maybe before that, just 2 quick answers on your side, and then we'll open up for people to go into a bit more detail. One is, how far do you think you can grow with this model? So would this model allow you to grow to, you said you wanted 40 to 100 cities to 200. Is this model limited at some point and you need to change it? Or do you think this model can take you all over Europe and all over the world potentially? That's one. And then what is the financial arrangement? Do they pay anything to be a franchisee, or it's free? And do they pay a royalty? So does the payment go through your system and they get kind of a share of the revenues, or they manage the revenues and they give you a share? What's the financials looking like?
Okay. So at the moment, and I use at the moment because it's at the moment and we don't know how it will work in the future, we don't have any upfront fee. So we are making it very easy for people to apply and open a Speak City. We do have a variable fee of 50% on the first 10,000 euros if the social entrepreneur or the founder is willing to raise an investment round in the beginning of doing fundraising, because we will help him building the decks, pitching the Speak. And so on the first 10K, we will get 5K. So this partially pays the cost of our time, making sure that he raises. Of course, if he's raising or if she's raising around 30K and 40K. We take 50% of the first 10K and then only 5% from that moment on.
That could be crowdfunding, crowdfunding, or
local crowdfunding.
Sponsorship.
If you go to speak.social website, on the footer you have donate button. We actually created a crowdfunding tool on ourselves so that we avoid fees to other companies. And we have one running for Brussels now, and in the past we had one for Braga, where she raised 11K, for example. So opening a crowdfunding locally is very easy at the moment. So at the moment, we don't have upfront fees, we have variable fees, and the variable fees we have are on the B2C, where we take 15%, and then everything else is 5%.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you think this can scale in terms of numbers much wider?
Yeah, so basically our assumption here is that someone that wants to create his or her full-time position can do it. So the financial model is strong enough to create that opportunity as well. Organizations or a group of people that want to only focus on the social aspect can still do it, and they don't need to pay upfront fee, but they will also not be focused on fundraising because they are in a small city and just want to have fun and make sure that they have some groups locally. Example of that is Amarante, for example, in Portugal. We have one like that. And in terms of scalability, we are still learning what are the best cities for Speak to operate. We know by now that all European capitals are most probably a good target. We also know that sometimes Speak show to work better in cities that are smaller, for example, and we will learn as we go. I think, and we believe that social franchising units will have a higher probability of success and will be the ones helping Speak changing as we go to make sure that it works in different city sizes, okay, and contexts.
And if I'm the entrepreneur in Brussels and they organize a few courses, does the payment go through to the central platform?
Yeah.
And then you give me my share?
Yeah.
Or it's the opposite? So you control the play.
It almost works like Airbnb. So in Brussels, if you are the founder on our technology, you will see in real time how much money you are making through the B2C in real time. And when you want, you also see like the fee that you will pay. And when you want, you click on the button and you say, I want these 2,000 euros. And you only issue the invoice of 2,000 euros. So imagine that 200 people signed up and paid. We handle the payment of 200 people with different payment methods. We pay the payment fees to all this stuff. We do 200 invoices, and you only have to do one invoice.
Which is your own too.
Yeah, which is yours when you are trying to get the money. So you have visibility of how much money you are making, you have visibility of people that are getting in for free, and you are the one that can click on the button to get paid. Okay. And this is the B2C. Then the other ones, you are the one responsible for that. So sponsorships, B2B, B2G, and donations, you need to fill a one-pager every quarter where you say where you are responsible to say and report some metrics, and there are also financial metrics. And you will also say the fee that you need to pay us. And on that moment, it's the opposite. We issue the invoice and
okay. So maybe now it's a good time to open up for questions. I think we went a bit deep into the model, enough so that people may have specific issues that they want to discuss, or even specific experiences they have with franchising that they would like to share with the group. So the first question from Raquel, how much is that fee? And that fee would be the 15% fee is what they keep 85% of the sales fee, and they give you 15%. Is that
exactly?
So the bulk of the fees stays with the local entrepreneur.
So yeah, they will get the 85% on that, and so they take 85% on the B2C channel, and 95% on everything else.
Okay. So they could actually create their own job and get their own revenues with Speak.
Look, if you go and check traditional franchisings, you will see that the models are way more heavy in terms of financials. We are making these very easy, and we are increasing the incentives for people to join and take Speak, because we know that a long time, if Speak is spread out around Europe and these entrepreneurs are succeeding, we will also have an opportunity to be self-sustainable as a whole, because like if you are helping many people, I'm pretty sure we will not run out of money.
Okay.
Yeah.
More questions. How do you realize you need to change the scaling model? Again, Raquel. So you already changed it from subsidiaries to franchising. Yeah. Would you at any point make it totally free, for example, and change, or?
I think we changed the growth model 2 times that were like very critical. One is where everything was manual, and we changed to a technology-based organization. And we realized that we needed to change because we couldn't scale. There was no way we could do that. So that was it. And the second time was when we had the model of growing organically, and then we understood that these will take us a lot of time and we will not be able to help at scale and grow fast. So we changed to replication, where we believe Speak will be able to help more people in even a better and more efficient way, and also will increase the probability of helping at scale. So it was right in our face that we needed to change about the future. We actually believe that now we got the model. I think this is it, and the team strongly believes that this will happen. Of course, we need the first 10, 15 social franchising units operating. We need our first 5 to 10 success cases. But what we have seen along this year is that this might actually work.
So you have 1 or 2 success cases already that you say, this city is working well?
Yeah, like we have Braga that is working well, but from Hulud, she was a girl from Syria that opened Speak in Braga. She's doing Speak as a side project. She has a different job, but Speak is working very well. So this was super cool. And now we have Brussels opening by two social entrepreneurs that really turned down job offers and left their own companies to really commit to Speak. So this we will learn a lot with this experience. And we have
committed people that are doing it full time.
Yeah, and we have Aveiro also. Valeria, that was also a Speak participant, and she wants also to make it a professional in a professional way. So this is another opportunity for us to have proof. Yeah, so that's what it's doing.
Let's see more questions. One is on the legal stuff. In terms of, is it a formal franchising where you have a franchising manual, they sign a contract?
Yeah.
How do you manage the legality part of it?
So we have NDAs and an agreement that basically as minimum metrics. We also manage on the NDA aspect. So we have basically agreement that needs to be signed. We have a 1-year candidate period where we will close for sure if you don't achieve certain numbers. And then if you achieve certain numbers on the first year, you have the license for extra 4 years. So that gives you 5. And of course, if you are achieving the goals, there's no way we can close it, which makes sense. We wouldn't. What is important for us is that the Speak founders succeed, because if that happens, more Speak founders will open new cities and we will success at scale. Yeah, we will succeed at scale.
Do you have what's called the formal franchising manual, and or it's a compilation of different kinds of documents, or how much investment in time and how an effort to do this kind of codification for the franchise model?
So this is an iteration process. So we are improving. Since day one in Speak, we try to systematize stuff, but we still had to have a bunch of work creating our manual. So we have our franchising manual with all the processes. Like to give you an example of detail about only the partnerships, we have the first email that you send, what you say on the first meeting, the second email you send, what you say in different languages. So it's really detailed, and this costs us a lot of time and resources, but we were doing that since day one, right? So it was a little bit easy, but the one responsible to make sure that operations work is actually Pedro Tunes, our COO, and he had to allocate a bunch of time before launching the program to make sure that we had all the operations and structure to handle these. Now, of course, we iterate.
Maybe we should do some consult to Católica to improve our own processes, because they seem to have better processes than sometimes large organizations have, which is quite interesting for entrepreneurial venture, which is also kind of a good message about the importance at this stage of development for your enterprises of codifying all the processes, systematizing as a way to looking for opportunities to automate some of them and to manage better and become more efficient on some of the others. So we have a few more questions. So from Joe, we have the question of what is the minimum number of participants in each group that take part in each city to be sustainable? So there's a critical mass for each group. Yeah. You mentioned you went 4 to 18. Is really 4 really the minimum? Is it too little? But also in terms of the size of the city?
In order to be sustainable, yeah, that's a good question. Maybe like just to throw out the number immediately, like if you are one person in Europe, you need to be able to have revenues or sales between 30K and 60K, depending on the city where you are, in order to have a full-time job and have a salary for yourself. Because then that's taxes, there's taxes. Having said that, there are different ways to achieve these numbers, financial-wise. Yeah. You can have 1,000 applications like Speak has in Lisbon, or you can have less applications, but have more sales on the B2B or B2G side or more donations. So this is a lot about your strategy as an entrepreneur, and we of course will advise you and show you what happens in other cities by other people, so that at least you can do some predictive analytics. You know what happened in different cities, so you can decide what you want to pursue in terms of strategy.
Revenues you want to pursue.
But yeah, like in terms of applications, you will need like 1,000 at the moment in your city. Lisbon has more than 1,000 per year.
How much does Braga have, for example, where it's a success case?
200, 300.
That's a small, medium-sized city.
Yeah. And this is a side project. She's not full-time. She volunteers. Or of course you can have like a B2B and like close a deal of 10K with one company and two companies, and this way you will be a bit more relaxed on the application side. Now, of course, strategically we push for applications because that's our social intervention model. That's where we want to
the impact will.
The more people we have in Speak, the better. So
and the stronger community will create.
We will only guide the Speak founders in a way that increase the probability of helping more people. So that's it.
Let's see a couple more questions. So Salome is saying that it's the part of automating the process is very important, and they are also doing it, but it's very difficult to implement. What do we have to do to keep that focus? Do you need to bring some type of expertise with someone with that mindset? Do you need to bring a consultant to help you? Do you need to, having gone through that process of codification to prepare for scaling, what would you advise other social entrepreneurs to do?
Yeah, so there's like two things here. I said one and then said two things here, but basically between outsourcing or handling in-house, it's a totally different thing. If you have someone in the team or you can close a funding to recruit a team element that is more operations automation able or skilled to do that, I think that's a better approach, because the knowledge stays in-house and you have all the information in-house. The second way to do it is outsourcing. We basically did an hybrid. So we had the skills in the team, because that's actually my background, but we still outsourced some of the work related to this. I think actually
what kind of provider did you outsource?
More on the implementation side. So we understood, because this requires a lot of knowledge of your model, and basically it was more on the development side. So the features, after identifying the ones that need to be automatized. Okay, so that's it. Of course, it's very difficult to do. It takes time. It changes. One of our mistakes, I guess, was I still think we could invest more in our technology, in automation. So if I was like 2 years ago, I would invest even more in technology.
You did a lot already, but you did even more.
Even more. Because that will define success in the future, I'm pretty sure. But automation for beginners is very simple. What are the processes that we are doing, listing them, how much time we take to go through one of these processes, and how often they run. And are they going to change in the future? Yes or no? If it's a no, then we prioritize them because we have the time that they take to process them, and how often we have to go through them, and we prioritize them, and then we start basically automatizing one by one. That's, long story short, that's what we do.
So it's a very systematic process in itself.
Yeah.
Let's see if we have more questions. Any other questions that you
Where can we get
at this stage?
franchising information?
So I know there's the website Speak to Your City. There's a lot of information there already. I saw that in your website.
Yeah, something that is interesting also was like I saw someone speaking recently about social franchising, and the guy said something very interesting. If someone tells you that they are expert on social franchising, they are lying, because there's no one that actually nailed on how to do this. So I'm sharing also here some thoughts on how we assume that we will be able to do that. We are working and doing our best here, but we are learning as we go. So that's one thing, and like what applies for us might not apply for one of you, and that depends a lot on the model as well. But on Speak, there's our page where we advertise that Take Speak to Your City. It's called Take Speak to Your City. So if you go to the footer of speak.social, there's a link, Take Speak to Your City, and that's where we have some information about it. Yeah.
Okay, very good. So other questions. We are getting close to the end already, a bit over time, but if there are a couple more questions, we can stay 5-10 minutes more. Any other questions that you have at this stage for Hugo, given his experience in scaling?
Experience meaning that failed to scale once and is now doing something that shows potential.
Yes. Failure means learning, which is very good. If anyone wants to do a live question, they can also do, not only written. If you want to speak your question as well, that is also possible. Just raise your hands, and they will activate you.
There's one here, I think. Codify all the processes.
Yeah, how long it took for you to codify? So in terms of hours of effort, or continuous effort time, what would you say? Is it months? Is it years?
Like, I know that Pedro took around 1 month to do the manual, but of course we had already many processes, because like we are very process oriented in everything we do. So every team member, like about partnerships, about marketing, about support, we have our document with processes. So it was a lot about reviewing them and organizing them in a way that was of value for the new Speak founder. So it depends on where you are. The way we work is we follow processes. If we do something that is not there, we stop and we go and we write down the process. So that if we go out on holidays or if we get sick and I get to your seat on the next day, by reading the processes, I don't need it to do a phone call. And that's
you know what to do, because it's systematized. And from my experience, people who become the best in class in what they do, whatever, I've seen a similar thing in hotel booking, the creation of booking.com, who is an entrepreneur that I know. In other areas, the people who are very systems oriented, very process oriented, usually perfect their intervention, perfect their business model, become the most efficient and best in class. And they're usually the ones that can survive this dead valley, that can actually come along the other side with an efficient model that delivers value and is efficient. So this process orientation is very important. Unfortunately, many entrepreneurs are very creative, and I speak for myself. I'm more entrepreneurial than process oriented, and the processes are lagging. And then our organizations don't scale. So I think you had that process mentality from the start, and if you inculcate it in your team, that can really make a big difference. Veronica, I think you have a question. Veronica, would you like to raise it?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, I wrote it, but I'll tell you anyway. Did you ever think of doing both franchising and growing organically at the same time? And what are the dangers or difficulties you manage to think if you would do both at the same time?
So now that we are in between of the two models, we actually have organic units and social franchising units. it's way more easy for us to open a social franchising unit because we don't need to have all the operations work. So we can potentially help more 1,000 people, but we don't have the extra work of being there. So if we open 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 social franchising units, we are only scaling the probability of helping more people. So that's better. That's why we focus on the social franchising growth. Having said that, in every social franchising company, in average, always 10% of the units are organic, because they do that to make sure that they have opportunity to learn and implement. So it's different of saying, I believe this is good, and knowing because I'm actually trying to do it, so I feel the difference. And basically, that's where we believe we will go. So until we get to 10%, we will not grow more organic units. But when we lag behind, we will open an extra one to keep the 10% in average. That's what we believe at the moment. Yeah.
Very good. I think we are getting close to the end time. I've already abused your patience for 10 minutes extra. Hugo, any final thoughts? What would be the things that you've learned along the way that you do differently regarding scaling or social franchising? Anything that you'd like to say and advise our listeners, our virtual audience?
I just want to say thank you for being here, and thank you guys, and best of luck in what you do, because I'm pretty sure that what you do matters. Just like many things went on the wrong direction a long time, probably with you guys as well. I will just say 3. If I could, I would test speak outside Portugal sooner. I think we took too much time to test speak outside Portugal, and that was a mistake. The second one was, if we could, we would invest more in technology and automation, even more than what we did. Because we will be able to scale even more at this stage. And number 3, I think it took a lot of time for me to leave a little bit the operations in the field and go more through strategy and use more time about strategy, supporting the team grow, making sure that we allocate our resources in an optimal or in the best way we can. So that gives you time and freedom to actually ask the right questions and help your team grow, because in the long term, there's no impact venture that will survive because of one of the founders or one of the employees. And you really need to make sure that the team is strong enough and that you basically optimize your time as well in the right direction. And I think I messed up along the way with that as well.
But as a good social entrepreneur, you were resilient, and you came at the other side kind of kicking and continuing, and now growing steadily with still lots of challenges, but also lots of promise for impact and for scaling.
Yeah, we are very optimistic at the moment. We are very happy with this model. I think we have something very special here, very easy to replicate. I think we will probably have an opportunity to grow 100% on the next year.
Excellent. We look forward to see that level of growth and success. So thank you, Hugo, very much for sharing your insights, your wisdom with us today. I just wanted to do a couple of final comments about the social franchising. I think we heard some things from the Speak experience which are very valuable. One is this process orientation, this systematic, almost obsessive focus with processes, systematizing everything that you do as a starting point to think about scaling. I think that is very important. And the other thing I would say, social franchising was very popular in the past. And then it became a bit less popular because it was very difficult to implement. I think what can make a big difference is technology and automation. Many of the models these days are technology enabled or can be technology enabled. Some of the models as yours are user empowerment, and technology is an enabler, and the action happens through the users, with users, which actually makes the model very scalable. Because you don't need your team to be delivering things. You can actually use technology as a lever to enable some intervention and some things to happen. So that, I think, will make social franchising more powerful as a scaling model in this platform mentality. So I think you will see more of that in the future, especially around process automation and scalability drivers based on technology. So I think those are some of the insights that we can take from this talk that you so well exemplified. So in terms of next steps, this is the third webinar in this series of webinars sponsored by the European Investment Bank in the context of the Social Innovation Tournament. There will be many more of them. We tried in this first three to test different topics and different formats, sometimes more of kind of a lecture or a conversation, a dialogue in this case. What we'll do now is, after these three webinars, we'll send a survey to everyone that attended the webinars. Some of you attended all of them, some of you attended only one or two, to get your feedback in terms of the formats you like best, the topics that you would like to see explored. Even if it's not topics that we personally know about, we can invite the expert on that topic to come in and deliver the webinar. So feel free to address any topic that you feel would be valuable for you. So please answer the survey that we'll send before Christmas, and then we'll do an assessment based on your feedback and launch a new lineup of webinars for the first semester of 2019. So thank you very much for the IB to the support to this series of webinars, to all of you for attending regularly and being our faithful audience. Thank you again, Hugo.
Thank you
for your technician.